Okay.
I think that muted. Try it again. It just
Oh, wait. Try it again.
Try it again. I didn't hear that. Oh,
It did a long time ago.
oh, it did. Okay.
So let me just check. Maybe we're not.
Right? Labor intensive.
So it is, we are streaming, but it just won't mute.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
I pressed it again. Is it muted?
Yeah, I should get it.
Well, we can begin. Okay. All right, we ready? Pass it down. Thank you. All right. With that, I will call this meeting to order. Greetings, everyone. Nice to see so many faces here with us, at least to start the meeting. Let's establish we have a quorum, please, beginning with a roll call vote. Let's start with Juan Carlos.
Here.
I know, spice it up. Going sassy. Yeah. Christopher.
Here.
Meredith. Here. John.
Here.
Corby.
Here.
Joe.
Here.
And I am here as well. We have a quorum. Corby, has this meeting been properly noticed?
Yes, it has.
Thank you. To help ensure that we're centering our board work around our shared values and serving our students, we begin each of our board meetings by reading our district's equity framework and the Ho-Chunk land acknowledgement, which can be found at the top of your agenda. Juan Carlos, would you please read those aloud for us this evening?
Absolutely. In the Verona Area School District, our mission is that each student will acquire the knowledge and skills necessary to achieve their personal goals, thrive in a diverse global society, and lead a healthy, self-fulfilling life. To meet this mission, the Verona Area School District will ensure that every individual has access to the educational, social, and emotional support they need to feel valued and affirmed in their unique identities and experiences. We acknowledge that inequities and power dynamics exist in our system, such that some individuals, on the basis of their identities, face barriers to accessing the opportunities they need to experience success. In acknowledgement of such, the Verona Area School District is committed to disrupting the systems of inequity. Taking the mint out of my mouth so I can be more articulate. Ho-Chunk land acknowledgement. There are currently 12 tribal nations who call Wisconsin home, with the Ho-Chunk Nation being the primary group living around Madison. No matter where you are in the state, you're on the ancestral land of the tribal nation. As we begin our meeting, we honor the land upon which we stand.
Thank you. Board members, then drawing your attention to the rest of tonight's agenda. If there are any questions or amendments, please feel free to share. Otherwise, I would accept a motion to approve the agenda as printed. So, thank you, Meredith. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Christopher. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, moving on. So the next agenda item is board recognition, which is technically just an agenda item, but I'm gonna toss it over to the superintendent because I really don't actually want to talk
You
about
talk about
this.
yourself?
Yeah, no, thank you.
Well, you should celebrate yourselves as a group for the phenomenal work that this team does as a board, and thank you for your leadership, President Murphy. So in beginning, January is National School Board Recognition Month, and we want to take a moment to thank each of you for your service to the Verona Area School District and our community. Serving on the Board of Education is demanding work. It requires time, thoughtful preparation, and a willingness to engage in complex and sometimes difficult decisions, all in service of students and the long-term health of our schools. You carry out this work thoughtfully, with integrity, always in grounding what's best for students. We appreciate your thoughtful governance, your commitment to our shared values, and your ability to stay focused on VSD's broader vision of educational excellence. Your leadership provides the clarity and stability our staff need to do their work well and helps ensure our students continue to thrive. On behalf of our students, staff, and families, thank you for your dedication, your leadership, and your service to public education. On behalf of the entire community that comprises the Verona Area School District, thank you so much for everything that you do and bring to this space. Congratulations. Each of you have a gift that's in front of you or to the side of you or behind you, Brother White. If you could, please do us the honor of opening those up.
Yeah, very fancy, right? Yeah, thank you very much for the gifts. I will at least say on behalf of just myself being a member of this board, I know we talk about like the logistics of being a group of 7, right? That all of our voices carry equal weight, that all of us bring aspects to this work, but I just truly could not envision being a part of any other board than this group of 7. I'm so appreciative, and I certainly would not be able to carry this random title of president if it not for all of you. So I'm super grateful to be a part of this team, and I feel like we are a collective in terms of vision and helping hopefully move the district forward, but yet all with our own expertise, values, backgrounds that I think really get to surface. So thank you all for being fellow board colleagues. And I'm going to eat a piece of chocolate eventually in this meeting that was in this box. Thank you for the recognition.
Absolutely. Thank you for your leadership.
Yes, and now we get to do better recognitions, which are student and staff recognitions, which is how we typically love to start board meetings. So our first recognition is student with the food drive club.
Absolutely. So we have a great audience today for a phenomenal reason. We think about service to others and service to our community. I can't think of a group of students who represent them more than our students that are before us today and those that are behind the scenes that support the Verona Area School District Food Drive Club. I just want to give a few details before I recognize some of the people here in attendance today. The Verona Area School District Food Drive Club collected over 50,000 pounds of food for the Badger Prairie Needs Network in the fall of 2025. The Verona Area High School Food Drive Club is student directed with over 65 members who work in hunger in the community. Members coordinate efforts across all Verona School District schools, raise cash donations, and partner with Miller & Son Supermarket, asking customers to purchase some of the Badger Prairie Needs Network's most needed items. Congratulations to the Food Drive Club members on your outstanding contribution to our community. And as we recognize in the Verona Press, it was actually an award-winning for the amount of work and the amount of food that was dedicated in the time in our society when service to others means the most. We thank you for standing up and being part of that collective effort. So before we do our grand round of applause, I'd like to recognize some of the leadership team of the board of directors. First, our advisor, Megan Bilskemper, who's in the back. And then our student recognition goes to Emma Larson, Emmett Orkowski, Dominic Jacobson, Lucy Colglaze, Aiden Fry, Maddox Boato, Will Strimlow, Sam Jenin, Aaron Yarbrough, Sophia Trias, Micah Kunder, and Taylor Pettit. Congratulations to all of you.
work and dedication to support our community. I know I was privileged to visit Miller's frequently, that I have a household that does the, oh, we kind of need this. So we go to Miller's multiple times a week, and happy to be able to see the smiling faces and the volunteers that were all there. The hours you put in, even just from that vantage point, just mattered so much. And I think the excitement, enthusiasm that you all carried even from that in-person opportunity, I hope really elevated the support that you all felt and the achievement you were able to do. So exciting. We appreciate your time being here. Thank you again.
Will, are you missing practice?
No, we just.
All right, that's good. That's good. Congratulations on a great season. And
Thank you.
Aaron, can I share your great news?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. As you know, Aaron Yarbrough has been I think they're one of 2 5-year members of the superintendent advisories. He started with us in middle school all the way through. He'll also be representing the Verona High School at the state conference next week as part of our presentation about student advisory, along with Faith Rush. And also very proud, of his academic and athletic journey. And I just learned, very proud that he will be running for the Iowa Hawkeyes. So congratulations. Congrats, and you're going to do great next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Exciting.
So next week,
Just so you know, Iowa City's not as flat as people talk about Iowa.
I'm a Hawkeye. It was fantastic.
We have some staff recognitions
Absolutely.
as well.
all right, we have 2 staff recognitions tonight, and we're very proud of. First, we'd like to extend congratulations to Rosa Maria Larson. The Verona School District is proud to announce that our Director of Multilingual Programs, Rosa Maria Larson, has been awarded a fellowship to participate in the 2026 Fulbright Leaders for Global Schools program. This highly competitive program will bring together 20 school and district leaders from across the United States to engage in global learning and collaboration with international educational systems. Rosa Maria will travel to Finland to participate in this 10-day learning experience. Finland is widely recognized as a global leader in education. Like many countries in the global north, Finland has experienced an increase in students from immigrant backgrounds. Approximately 18% of Finnish elementary through upper secondary students come from immigrant backgrounds, compared to approximately 24% of K-12 students in the United States. Rosa Maria's primary focus will be on how Finland supports students from migrant backgrounds, particularly those learning Finnish as a second language. Through school visits across grade levels and conversations with educators and national education leaders, this experience will provide opportunities for meaningful exchange related to how Verona School District supports multi-language learners. And I believe you fly out this weekend, right?
Fly out on Sunday.
On Sunday. So congratulations on this one.
Can we request that you come and speak to the board with some of the things you experience and learn? I would love to hear about it. Not in a pressuring way, but we can chat. And then for the sake of the community too, to be able to hear the things that you learn about. Congratulations.
All right. Our next congratulations is can I personally give the nickname the greatest bundle of joy that I've been around in education. But that is Teresa Voss. We want to extend congratulations to Verona High School Library and Media Center Director and District-wide Librarian Teresa Voss. I'm being honored with the 2026 Wisconsin Education Media and Technology Association's Forward Award. The WEMTA is committed to providing leadership and professional growth opportunities to promote quality learning and informational access. The Verona School District Library Programs exemplifies the very best of library and media services that strengthen and support student achievement. In particular, Ms. Voss was recognized for her strength in leadership and professional growth, curriculum, and funding for resources. Congratulations to Teresa Voss.
This feeling, as long as I've been on the board, I don't think you've earned enough awards.
Yeah.
Just for truly, honestly, I feel like there ought to be something to acknowledge what you bring to this district all the time, every year. So this just feels impactful and Yes, yes, so obvious. Thank you for being here. Thanks for all you do. We look forward to your presentations and updates too. Just to keep informed on all the things that you're doing to support our learners, our staff, everyone. And thanks, Teresa Voss.
Thank you so much. All
And
right.
now the actual superintendent's report, which we do take this moment to breathe, recognizing that maybe our esteemed guests would like to stay to talk about open enrollment or maybe not. So please feel free to, we thank you so much for being here. You are more than welcome to stay. And
Thank you. One of these days you're going to say.
I know, one of these days, we'll have a topic next that will be.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thanks for not returning my bucks.
As we do shift to our one official topic in superintendent's report, open enrollment update, I believe we'll have some presence up at the board table. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Chad. So board members will be taking some time to really process and discuss our open enrollment, which happens every year at this time. A bit of a different set of information this time around.
All right. Thank you, board. So as we open the superintendent's report, I'm excited to bring our Deputy Superintendent, Chad Weezy, and our Executive Director of Academic Services, Amy Engelkins, to the space. I think it's important as we talk about open enrollment that we had the perspectives of both the operations side of the house as well as the academic side of the house, and see how these worlds to come together in terms of open enrollment. I do want to preface this conversation that as you have probably read, as I know you've read in your documents, but we'll hear as part of the presentation that we have, a significant philosophical shift as to how we have approached open enrollment and open enrollment recommendations to the Board of Education. So in previous years, we were, I think rightly so thoughtful about trying to measure spaces, especially in our young ages, particularly 4K and sometimes 1, from the perspective of the number of potential rooftops or developing rooftops in our space, knowing that in terms of rooftops, we are still remain one of the fastest growing communities across Dane County. Also understanding that the calculation of rooftops to children produced is not as relevant as it was in the past, and that calculation number has significantly declined. And so learning from the last 2 years worth of data, we have pivoted and we want to bring our why behind the recommendations for what we anticipate would be a great discussion from the board around a different approach to open enrollment. So with that, I'll turn it over to our team to begin the presentations and be open to a great conversation as we talk about.
Thanks, Dr. Clarity. Yeah, to add to that, certainly, and I've been one of the voices at the board table having this discussion the last few years. We've cautioned the board around going too far all in relative to open enrollment with the prospect of what we've seen from outside consultants saying you're going to pick up 75, 100. I just pulled up the updated Roffers report that we did in April that has us by 2027 with another 130 students. We've also found that is not completely accurate, that even the new homes being built aren't necessarily producing, to Dr. Clarity's point, the same number of students that they have historically. We believe that happens for lots of reasons. Every rooftop has its own story, but we have made the decision to, and as you're going to see, at least for this year, to be a little more aggressive with the number of open enrollment spots we're recommending to the school board. And a big piece of that, we've had dips in student enrollment the last couple of years, and believe even if we filled the majority of the seats we're recommending to the board this time around, we have a chance to do this every year. And that if those seats do fill and all of a sudden you do end up with larger cohorts of students into the future, we can take our foot off the gas a little bit and slow back down when it comes to the number of students that we've allotted for open enrollment. Just talked to Nate on the way up here. The board should know that even with the spots we opened last year, only about 60% of those spots did fill. So that this isn't like a guarantee that what you all recommend this evening for your board vote holds and we automatically pick up that exact number of students. Those spots would be available, but it's certainly not a guarantee all of those students would come. Many other school districts within 15 miles of here are having the identical conversation tonight. And I think you're going to read in the blotter that comes out relative to what's going on with open enrollment spots in Verona County. Lots of spots will be opened up for families to have choice. And we're here tonight to kind of give you our recommendation in line with that.
Just a reminder to an area that we learned from as well in terms of the percentage of students that actually accepted the spot, that a family can apply for more than one district and then choose from which district they want to go to. So it's also, we believe that we are a highly desirable district, but we can't take that for granted and make sure that we are presenting families with the commitment to the phenomenal staff, as you just saw, and some of the recognition, the great work of our students, as well as the tremendous programming that we can offer as well. So the application does not mean a seat until that person actually accepts our district as a spot for open enrollment.
We've got a little background information for the board. Amy's going to walk us through some of the decision-making that went around keeping high quality programming intact for all of our students in terms of where we ended up with recommendations for open seats. And then we've got the numbers that we're going to ask the school board to vote on after we kind of work through this. So I think, as all of you know, open enrollment is actually a result of a state law that wanted to open up choice for families relative to public education. It's relative that the word enrollment is aligned to a student being enrolled in our school district, and open enrollment simply is you can apply where all of you have voted on open seats through the process that Nate and the enrollment office manage. And then eventually, if we have spots, they apply, they meet the criteria on the application. Later this spring and into the summer, Nate's office and the enrollment office notify those families, and then eventually it all gets synced up. Did want you to be aware of tuition waivers. This mainly comes up with our 11th graders that we had questions around before with the school board. If there are students who left the school district during their junior year or didn't leave the school district, moved out of the school district, they have the ability to apply for a tuition waiver, which we commonly grant to carry on as a senior and graduate with us. So wanted to make sure you knew that those are not reflected in open enrollment numbers we're recommending to you tonight, but that we've already consulted with Nate and the enrollment office, and that does exist, that every family who enrolls out, regardless of grade level, is given the information that they can apply for a tuition waiver if they'd like, and then stay with us. They have to provide their own transportation back into the district from wherever they moved, but folks who move out and our 11th graders have the ability to hang out with us and graduate a Wildcat when they're all done. We do have a couple of preferences, and I believe school districts can have a variety of preferences here. The ones we land on in our school district. So we currently give preference to students that have siblings that attend here. Primarily, we actually don't think, for the most part, with the numbers we're recommending to you tonight, preference will play a huge role. Because there are so many spots. But again, we do have a system here that if all applications were equal, there is a preference for students that have siblings that attend here. We went through this with the board again last year, but just as a reminder, students who are currently in 5th grade, we basically have one gate throughout the K-12 experience here. If you're already an accepted open enrollee, we've taken that into account when we recommend numbers to you tonight with the 6th grade class, but 5th graders do have to reapply for open enrollment through our school district and would be given preference in the event that they fill out that application and want to continue on with us as 6th graders.
Also, if I could just pause this and clarify, I think a narrative that sometimes gets confused with the transition period, and that's between 4K and K. Sometimes there is a belief that you have to reapply between 4K and then go into K. That's not the case. Once it's 4K open enrollment, that goes all the way till the 5th grade gate as well. So just to support our community that's often listens or rewatches this open enrollment piece, we want to make sure that there's not, they understand that there's not a double application between 4K and then have to do it again in K.
And that's even more applicable tonight because we've got 4K spots that I potentially this is the first time in the history of our 4K program that the district's opening up spots in 4K. We'll give you some reasonings for that tonight. Again, this is just reiterating our communication with those 5th grade families. We did sketch out a little timeline. We have a board vote tonight, and this has to be done in the month of January. Once that happens, those numbers are then solidified, and families may apply from the beginning of February all the way through the end of April. Then there's a couple of communications that have to happen in the month of June. And then when we get to the end of June, that's when parents have accepted those applications and it's go time. They're officially with us and have tied together all those pieces with our enrollment office. We do want to have Amy here tonight, and certainly we can tag team this if the board has questions. I can tell you next, with all transparency, next to the project related to building the school calendar, this one is, we probably had a dozen meetings with our small team getting to the numbers we're presenting to you tonight, because there are so many extenuating circumstances. We kind of brushed over just the one big extenuating circumstance that we really don't know how many students are coming next year. And no matter how much you pay a consultant or how many smart people you have on your team, there are too many outside factors in terms of how many students are actually going to enroll here. And if we knew that number exactly, this work would be maybe a little bit easier. With that, we don't know what grade levels they are, what type of programming they might need. So there are a lot of factors that go in to the numbers we're recommending tonight. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that our current residents are guaranteed the exact same amazing experience that they had this year going into next year. But also it's our duty and our lawful duty that if we believe we have open spots where that programming won't be impacted, and we could offer that same level of programming to an open enrolled student, we need to offer those spots to the families that potentially would take advantage of that state law. So Amy, I don't know if you wanted to kind of go through a little more detail on how we got to these numbers.
So definitely not an exact science. Later tonight, you'll hear the math results policy. There's some really clear equations and really concrete numbers there, but this it just has a variety of variables. So just speaking through a few of the factors from both the operational side as well as the instructional programming side that we take into account when we think about how to determine the space. The first is our projected student enrollment. So we're really asking ourselves the question of what do we know about students moving from one grade level to another, and what do we know about the historical patterns of students who may leave the district and students who may come in. And so on the next slide, Chad will share the coefficient and the way that we've calculated the historical patterns to get to projected student enrollment. Again, knowing that that's our best guess, our best estimate, even what we've learned from consultants in the past hasn't necessarily stayed true. So one factor there. Another factor is the class size limit and the pupil to teacher ratios. We know that we've set some maximum class sizes, and yet it's not our goal to fill all of those seats to the max, recognizing that some students benefit from smaller learning environments. Some classes require specialized equipment or labs that only hold so many students. And so it's not as easy as saying every class holds this many students and divide the number. We need to really think about centering the student experience and centering student needs and the specific programming of those students that goes beyond the square footage of the school or the number of seats in the classroom to really make sure that we can pay attention to class size limits and pay attention to the capacity of our staff to support those student needs.
Can I add one piece here? Because I know we've also talked about, we don't want to do open enrollment that leads to hiring staff. So I feel like that's also kind of inherent in what you've said, that isn't right, we're not looking to hire because of open enrollment seats. I think that's something fundamentally that this team has talked about and our board has talked about, which goes to what you just said, that we work with what we have for FTE and class sizes.
And we're still kind of in the ironical position that we're also looking to make sure our staffing is as efficient as possible rolling into next year, knowing how tight that budget's going to be. So that work's still going to go on. You know, these two worlds are coming together. where we may end up and probably will end up with more open enrolled students. But at the same time, we're really scrutinizing every retirement and every resignation to make sure we're really running as lean as we can to continue to have an eye on that next year's budget. Yep.
Yeah, so that kind of goes to caseloads and staffing capacity, to your point, Jen. We're not looking to fill empty seats rather than add additional sections. So with that, we've looked through each of the programs. We recognize some of our programs and some of our caseloads and some of our grade levels may be closer to capacity and others may have room. And so that's what we've been examining as part of this process, while also trying to maintain fidelity to that program and our ability to deliver on our promises to those students and families. And then we have declining enrollment. So it goes with the bullets around the graduating senior class and the kindergarten spaces. We're looking to shake hands with 481 seniors as they cross the stage come June of this year, so graduating a class of 481, while our kindergarten class, the class of 2038, is currently sitting at 335. So about 150 students different from our seniors to our kindergarten students. When we look at 4K, we currently have 218 students, so less than half of what our current senior class is. So we're seeing this trend and want to make sure that we can fulfill our legal obligations with regards to naming our open enrollment spaces as a part of that, while also continuing to have really strong programming for the students that we have in the district. And then back in 2022, we made a promise to our community through our referendum to make sure that we would keep class sizes low and manageable. So again, while we're looking at spaces that we may have, we still continue our commitment to high quality programming, high quality instruction, and those low class sizes for students. So all of those are some of, or I guess not even all of those, but many of those are the factors that we've been taking into consideration as we try to get to this number of what might we be able to recommend. So really what Chad will share is our best estimate for our space allotment for regular education as well as special education. And when it comes to the 26-27 school year, remembering that we have to do this each year, we are currently not recommending opening additional spaces for open enrollment for students with IEPs. And this recommendation is based on our current capacity to provide the specific special education and related services that are required by students' IEPs. We know that federal and state law require us as a district to ensure appropriate staffing, appropriate programming, appropriate supports to fully implement our students' IEPs. And at this time, accepting additional students with IEPs would increase our caseloads. If we're not adding additional sections, would increase our caseloads and could impact that system. At the same time, we do have the capacity to accept general education students through open enrollment, and we're prepared to provide them with any supports they might need to be successful. So we know that the recommended number, over half of those recommended spaces are in 4K through 2nd grade. We know historically, lower grade levels are where we learn of specific student needs. So, and we're working to match students with those supports. So a student may need a personalized reading plan. A student may need a language development plan. A student may need some additional interventions, or we may be conducting initial evaluations. So while the recommendation is not to add any additional spaces specific to students with IEPs at this time, we are working to ensure we can continue to meet the needs of the students we have in our system and provide high quality programming while also being prepared to meet any of the emerging needs for other incoming students. So overall, in trying to piece all of these different factors together, our goal has been to remain committed to maintaining high quality, legally compliant services and ensuring that all of our students really receive what they need to be successful in the Verona Area School District. So I'll turn it back to Chad for some equations.
Yeah, we got a couple more slides here. So and Dr. C kind of led off with this, and I think this is where we'll kind of wrap things up. We did slightly pivot this year in terms of the data sets we relied on to inform everything that Amy just went through and eventually bring you numbers related to open enrollment spots around the district. This year we leaned much more heavily on a 3-year cohort or average, in particular with what we were doing grades 1 through 12, but did actually want to tease out the example below on the numbers we used for that 4K to 5K transition. And regardless of all the new rooftops and an outside report saying these 3-family homes are going to produce 1.2 students per home, and here's how they break out per grade level. We leaned more heavily on historical data and trends that have really stayed true to the Verona area school district and relied less heavily on an outside consultant to inform these numbers. I think that's still valuable and will always be valuable when it comes to purchasing land and long-range facilities development and another data point. But we ended up here as really the data that we leaned on. So we did want to walk the board through because the numbers we have this year for 4K and 5K are pretty different than they were historically, and at least the last few years, in terms of the numbers we recommended to the board with open enrollment spots. So we wanted to show you that there is a very interesting 4K to 5K growth coefficient that occurs every year between 1.2 and 1.3 as the multiplier. The number of students we have enrolled in 4K is an excellent predictor of what we're going to end up with for kindergartners. Dane County birth rates seem like there were a large number of births in the city of Verona that should be rolling into kindergarten, but our 4K numbers are not showing that exists. And we're relying more on who we actually have attending this year as a historical indicator for what we believe will come with students enrolling that are in our school district, and that directly inform what we're recommending to the board when it comes to our kindergarten class. So as Amy mentioned, we have a historically low 4K class this year, 218 students enrolled in 4K. If we average out that coefficient that has played out the last few years and does stick, if we had Jennifer Skibba up here, she'll tell you every year she can get within 30 kids in terms of what happens with 4K, regardless of what the birth rate data showed us 5 years ago. So we believe in the ballpark of 272 residents will enroll and be with us for kindergarten next year. That number is what we use to inform our recommendation to the board when it came to kindergarten. It's a more of an exact science for us to figure out, here's how many third graders we have. On average, here's how many we pick up during the summer. Those would be move-ins or new houses that were built and folks moved into the school district. That number gets really close. So we're pretty confident, and always it's the lower grade levels that's a little bit more of a guessing game, and we pivoted in terms of what we're going to offer the board tonight.
I would just add, Chad, we have also worked really closely with our community providers because they have to do these calculations all the time to also figure out what can they expect. They've had conversations with families that may have younger siblings that might be coming into the system, and we've worked in collaboration with them to make sure that they also feel confident in the numbers that we were recommending based on the space that they have and then what they've learned from families.
And I'll add to that, our community partners, our 4K partners are welcoming with wide open arms the possibility of some open enrolled students into the 4K environment. Dr. C did also mention that I think there's an incentive that if you live outside our school district and you want to open enroll 4K and you're interested in being with us for that K-12 experience, once you're in 4K, you do not have to reapply until you become a 5th grader. And our district has historically allowed for 6th grade spots to hold on to those 5th graders. So I think that's another incentive for families to open enroll into the 4K spots that we're recommending to the board tonight.
As you move ahead with the next bit of information, do you have any sense of between the 21-22 and then the projection for kind of this year into next, has staffing stayed consistent? Is that part of being able to know kind of spaces? Do you get what I'm saying? Like the number of staff we had in 21-22 at kindergarten in particular, has that FTE remained fairly consistent even though, right? How does that compensate for, we've declined students, but now we want to add, but where are we?
Jen, you just added a bullet that we could have, we could have done 3 hours on the middle school master schedule in terms of us coming up with numbers for you tonight. So that number of kindergarten spots varies on an annual basis. Mm-hmm. So I think we had a year 2 years ago where maybe had 2 sections at Stoner Prairie, and the next year we had 4 because we had a big influx. So that varies and will vary this summer. We will make staffing adjustments all the way through the spring if we have load student counts in certain sections, that if we have a really tight third grade cohort in one school where it's 27 students per section and maybe very small second grade classes at a different school, there could be spring conversations with Amy and HR and Teresa that we may have a teacher we have to move from one school to another to balance things out.
That's,
So that hasn't been perfectly stable.
but the shuffling is what has happened. It hasn't been adding, losing, it's been shifting FTE at particular spaces for the most part.
For the most part, I think we are, and Rochelle's here, I think we're down in terms of our number of elementary school teachers over the last couple of years. Because if we ended up with retirements and low section numbers, those would be spots we wouldn't be hiring. But the number we're recommending to you tonight would not require hiring, but we believe would fill out the sections we have available. And that's still the goal. We would not want this just to be so wide open that we'd have to do a whole bunch of hiring. And then I think compounding a factor that if we start to end up with full schools, all of a sudden we rushing long-range facilities work. But that's not the case. We're down about 150 students from where we were 2 years ago. So we know we've got room and section numbers in our schools.
And just philosophically, right, financially, we're not looking to hire more or build more to bring in open enrollment because that's not really respecting the community taxpayer. That's, I mean, I don't want to say it too generically, but the reason we don't over open enroll to hire is to be fiscally responsive to the community members that are paying into the district.
For sure, it is, if many of these sections fill up, and maybe we use an elementary example, we were sitting at an awkward number where we had, let's say, 30 second graders, where we would not want to run one class of 30 second graders, and we have two, there sits 15. We'd rather be at 22. And then you don't have to hire another teacher, and our school district actually operates more efficiently with fuller section sizes, and that's really kind of the tool of open enrollment and what DEI intended it to be, where you kind of get more bang for your buck. The lights cost the same, the bus costs the same, everything else, but you just fill the class up.
Is that true, even if, I know we're not projecting that all of the spots we open up will be filled. Is that true even if, we're surprised and they are? Because I mean, this is, like, I was surprised at, like, this is like over 5% of our total enrollment that we're boosting our numbers up. And it's a little bit hard to grasp that won't require hiring any new staff. I mean, I see the point that they're spread out over the whole district, but still, like, that's such a big number. So is that true even if every spot that we open up is filled?
In theory, yes. And I think you heard Amy allude to the fact that we could end up with more students that require reading plans. And Amy might tell you that to serve this appropriately, but we ended up with an extra 250 students, we may need to hire a staff member to support those needs. We don't know if the students open enrolling will have English language needs and may have to pivot in the spring accordingly. But I think for the most part, we do believe that would hold true because it's spread out, K-8, and if all those sections pick up a couple of students, we believe it holds.
I just want to also put into the space for their team and for listeners, that one of the statements that Chad stated was about a lower enrollment over the last 2 years. Because sometimes we get a question from our community around why, just a reminder that we're not losing students, a large number of students out to open enrollment. Our open enrollment out is very, very small.
And very stable.
And consistent over the years. The root for that is very large graduating high school classes and very small incoming 4K kindergarten classes. It's purely on the margins, not because of concerns between the margins.
Juan Carlos, do you have a question or what?
I think you kind of answered it, but just to put it out there, I mean, we're doing this in consideration of keeping the student-teacher ratios at the level that we want to see them. So I think it's important because parents might be concerned about that. And then in addition to that, like, I think it's important, obviously, the financial factor and potential FTE increase and what have you, but correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just trying to understand, if we have an influx of additional students, that also equates to an additional influx of resources.
It does.
Yes.
So that
State
if there
aid.
were a need, you could address that need because that would mean additional resources to address the need. If
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we just got lucky and didn't need to add anything, it'd be, win-win across the board.
Right.
Okay, that's all,
It,
that's all,
yeah.
that's all I wanted to kind of.
That's
Well,
it is very well said, yes. Mr. Fargo, you have a question?
I was just gonna put a finer point on the fact, when I look at these numbers, when we talk about not adding teachers, you say, for example, fifth grade, we're recommending 25 spots. That's because there are like 5 fifth grade classrooms at different sites that are 5 students short of capacity. Something like that.
Yeah, I'm guessing we have 8 or
Yeah,
10 fifth grade teachers, so that's,
but it's important not to look at this and be like, well, we're adding more than a whole class. You must be adding a teacher. That's not
you're
true.
sprinkling in a few students to a class.
Okay.
Yep, if they all came.
Which is a good reminder about the process again too, right? That the spaces are not, how it all gets assigned then too and all those things, which might be worth elevating, but yeah.
And that was a piece of our work where behind the scenes, we do have sketched out, like, we're like, there's a small section rolling through in this school, and we do think this would likely be a spot where we could place an open enrolled student.
Mhm.
But that's not exact either. You can still have students move in the rest of this school year. That makes us alter that course until we actually end up placing them later on when we get close to the summer.
Is now a good time to ask, to maybe talk a little bit about all the donuts for the high school, the zeros?
Sure.
Yeah, we just talk about like what being full means at the high school then, and why that's different.
We currently have, we have building capacity, square footage capacity, in theory, for about another 600 or 700 students. We don't have the people that would go along with that. So at the high school, if we said, Brian, we're bringing you another 100 students, he would say, where is my 5.5 teachers to fill out the classes relative to course requests?
Right, so this is again to what I asked earlier, like, if we were to even add 1 ninth grader, we would have to add resources necessarily to the high school, and it wouldn't necessarily, then we would be doing that thing that we don't want to do, where
We believe the way
Right.
the high school is currently staffed, Brian is running a very efficient master schedule.
Yeah.
And that we believe the high school is in a place that adding students would likely cause them to have to make adjustments to the master schedule.
And there's programming considerations as well, like just the depth and breadth of the programming that we're able to offer at the high school, and want to maintain stability with that with regards to the FTE and the staffing capacity to do that.
So then with these numbers, in theory, potentially, the 45 open enrolled students at the middle school will eventually be at the high school, right? If we just go by full numbers, because they don't have to reapply. So in a way, there is a longevity potential for those students to be open enrollees through high school.
There is, and this wasn't necessarily the kind of the method to our madness, but as you can see, as you work your way through here, if you're picking up 5, 6, 7 students with every transition, K-1, if we had no open enrollment, odds are in the summer we have 5 or 6 move-ins, and you pick students up every year, and you do that for 10 or 11 years, you grow that cohort. As you can see, and like I said, we did not intend this from the get-go, but you can see all of a sudden our class sizes start to balance out at about 450, 460, 470, and that I think there is a little harmony to that, that we're not all of a sudden having a giant 3rd grade class roll through with a super small 2nd grade class that causes a whole bunch of teachers to move around. So there's that as well. So,
Can I ask that like a little more of a finer point on this? Because we did just talk about how we're graduating kind of a record size class. And from these projections, it looks like the incoming freshman class is going to be a little bit smaller than what we're graduating. So what we're talking about is that next year, potentially the total enrollment at the high school might go down a little bit.
could go down.
But what we're trying to protect against is that those future years, because once you let someone in after the 6th grade level, they're in until they graduate.
Yes, they are.
To ensure that a little bit further down the road, we're not overwhelmed. Do I have that right?
100%.
Okay.
So I think the board helped us segue, because I think we were all looking kind of at that next slide. So here are our current recommendations, and this number is bigger than the year before. And as I prefaced before, there's likely no chance we fill all 399. But I promise you, we've done 2 months of work on this to end up at this number, and that we are confident that all the things we laid out for all of you, our school district will still run the Class A programming it's got right now. Class sizes will still be very comfortable in terms of what we promised from that 2022 referendum. And we believe these numbers are the right numbers to recommend to the school board.
I have another question. One of the things we've been uneasy about in the past with open enrollment, and granted, every other discussion we've had about this has been about much smaller numbers than this. But it's the idea, that idea of reapplying between 5th and 6th grade, and that there's unknowns, and we can't ever guarantee what it's gonna look like come that application point. But I just wanna make sure that we feel confident, like as I look at 4th grade, that's a big number. Are we confident that when it comes time for us to be looking at this in 2 years, that at the 6th grade level, we're gonna be able to, I mean, I know we don't think all 71 will be filled, but I just know we don't feel great about kicking kids out of our district.
Yeah, so as you can see, that 4th grade class is very low when compared to, it's 100 students down from our current senior class. There are a couple of factors there. We have mentioned that Badger is pretty full. We have made a move with Twee to take a little heat off of Badger, not only because it's good for capacity, but it's good for kids in terms of programming. So Joe, we do actually think we have more tools available to us a few years down the road when it comes to managing that 6th grade class. Because Savannah has square footage capacity, and now we're going to shift some of the teachers over to serve for Twee, and we do believe we're well positioned to handle that. Other questions with these numbers?
Can you remind me again, as we think about these numbers, how this connects to our charter programs? I forget how open enrollment impacts or connects to spaces within charters. I know that's potentially a big vortex question, but again, some of this to also re-educate me and the community about spaces don't lead to a specific site that you get to choose.
Correct.
And how does that layer in with our charter programs?
Well, I told Nate I would go to the bullpen only if we need.
Is that a bullpen tab?
I'm gonna make a quick run at this.
Yeah.
Students apply to our district solely based on the grade they're in and the interest in our school district.
Okay.
Then eventually they are offered a spot, and the family decides if they're coming or not. Once they are a member of our school district, then just like any other student, they can apply for a charter, but that has to sync up with timelines relative to our district. So the deal is right now, I believe Nate's already going through the charter application for our existing students. So it is most likely that a student, if they're interested in a charter school, would apply the following year once they're a member of our school district, unless there were spots that were left open following our own internal charter process. Nate, I need to go to where I need to
Yeah.
go 95.
You got yourself out of the.
I can run 95, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I had to add one thing in terms of, we do allow students to apply late to our charters, and then I think you kind of said this, they go to the bottom of our wait list. So an open enrolled student this year could still apply and make it into a charter school by this fall if there's space available for them. But
That made a lot of sense.
Yeah, just to put a finer point on it, this is because the charter lottery happens before open enrollment is
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
100%.
So we do our lottery without any of
Yeah.
the open enrolling decisions being made. That's why you would then most likely have to wait a year.
Exactly right.
Makes sense. And when those letters go to families saying, we have a spot for you, it will be at blank, it says the site also, so when they're making their choice to say yes, they know which site they'll be
Correct.
connected to.
Yes.
Right.
All right. We're always around for questions. If you don't have any, we have some recommended board language that will make us compliant with Wisconsin EPI law relative to all of the ins and outs of open enrollment. So we copied and pasted our factors that went into this decision-making and our recommended numbers by grade. And then Jen did make some recommended board language for this vote and decided to vote.
Okay, and we will we'll shift to public comment momentarily, but any questions that are still lingering right now while we have this team here to answer? Okay, thank you for the hours and hours. Just to reiterate to board members in the community that this seemingly short presentation is a synopsis of a lot of energy, which is why we are so appreciative to have a recommendation to work from. I know I feel that way.
Yep.
Just because of all the data digging that you all have done.
Happy to do it.
One thing I wanted to add, you come with very conservative numbers historically when it comes to open enrollment. And so I think the fact that you're coming with quite a high number, to me, there is the confidence that you have taken a conservative approach year after year after year. And so if you're recommending these numbers, I feel confident that this isn't just like, we just added a 9 at the end and we're good. So
Not a bit. I can say there were still conservative conversations that have happened here that we certainly, we have to build in enough that even through the birth rate work and through the MDR Roffers work, that we had to build in enough cushion there that if we had 15 move-ins in 4th grade, we still serve the students that come to us. There's still a conservative bend to this, but certainly far less conservative than we've been in the past.
well, and I think it's even more that I trust that your calculations have been thoughtful and taken into account the whole realm of all of these different factors that could be considered. So I appreciate the fact that you have taken a conservative approach, which gives me the confidence that even this number, though it looks high, is still with that same approach that you've historically presented numbers to us. So thank you.
I think it's also worth emphasizing that there's still unpredictability. We could still end up with kindergarten enrollment way higher than we were projecting.
Joe, if I wouldn't be in this boardroom if I had a method to figure out how to do this. I'd be selling it. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, one of the things unless the board has any question, I want to close with as part of our presentation piece of it is, when Chad talks about it's the right kind of pain going through this process, but the pain is because we consistently press each other on the what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
What if, we have these students that need this type of programming? Can we do it with fidelity? We kept asking ourselves, can we maintain fidelity of the program that we have here? Can we have the fidelity of any student or any family that's trusting us to serve their child as well, and not look at just the number and not look at the dollar amount behind the dollar, but can we uphold the expectations that we have as a district with these numbers? So that's why they got so meaty and heavy, because that piece of it was our factors that our commitment to a high quality education has to be our focus. And
Thank you, team. Thanks, board
Thanks,
members.
guys.
So we'll revisit the vote shortly, always taking that time to pause for public comment, especially when we're taking important votes. We do have one public comment this evening that I see from Jason Strauss. You're welcome to come up to the board table or stay where you are. Yeah, come right up.
You probably heard the quote from Victor Hugo, he who opens a school closes a prison. And all of you have opened the hearts and minds of countless numbers of students. A few of them you got to meet today, but most of them you won't. And on behalf of all the students that I've been blessed to teach over the years and this year, thank you for what you do. You will never know the impact that you have on most of these kids. The education, the resources, everything that you do in these meetings is very, very, very much appreciated. And I know that these meetings go on for a long time, and you could be doing many other things, being with your friends and family, and you're here doing the hard work because you know how important it is. And it is really important that we do have a month that we say thank you. Sorry I don't have a present, but, but I just want to say thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Thanks. All right, no other public comments, so we'll move back then to board action. So board members, we do then have the vote to take on open enrollment. We've gotten our recommendation as presented by the district for open enrollment seats totaling 399 spaces for the 26, 27 school year. What just happened on January 1st? That changed, okay. Any further discussion, questions that we want to mull over as a board? The opportunity, of course, is there to make a motion at any time.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion from Joe to, what I'm
Approve as
understanding.
presented,
Okay.
whatever the language is.
Okay, and a second from Meredith. Any further questions? All those in favor of approving the 399 open enrollment seats as presented by administration for the 26-27 school year signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, open enrollment set.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to next item in board action, we are reviewing our mathematics results policy report, which we got in our hands on Thursday, board members. If you've had a time to peruse. And thank you, Amy, for coming back. And Karen, good to see you.
Nice to see you. Okay, so excited to have some more exact numbers for you. Open enrollment. But to really lean into our mathematics monitoring report, we found the process of going through this similar to our language arts process really helpful for us and our team to be able to lean into some of the celebrations and also be able to share some of the leadership moves and the areas that we want to continue to grow. So you all have the very extensive monitoring report and hopefully the one-page AI highlights on the front are a nice summary. Our goal tonight is to give you kind of a broad overview of some of those data points. And then more specifically, some of the leadership moves, as well as highlighting some of the street data and the voices of our students in terms of how they are experiencing mathematics in the Verona Area School District. So we'll start with just the policy language, reminding ourselves that we did change this from last year. The question we've been trying to answer is to what extent are students at various grade levels able to use mathematical concepts and practice to reason, solve problems, and apply learning in real and theoretical concepts. So as we prepare for a results policy and coming back to the board to share our progress, it's always important that we go back to the previous year. And when we were here last year presenting 2.2 for mathematics, this was an area that we had made reasonable progress, but with exceptions. And the exceptions last year were specific to the pre-ACT. So it's important to us that we come back to the board and share what were the leadership moves or the actions that we took as a result of what you noticed in those exceptions. So you see the snip of the old monitoring report and the red and yellow check marks. Hopefully you don't miss those too much. But last year, the overall pre-ACT for all students from spring of 23 to spring of 24 had decreased. And we also saw a decrease for several of our focus groups as well, which made this an exception. The leadership moves that we leaned into in the meantime, we're continuing to focus on professional learning communities, teachers leaning into data review and developing multi-level systems of support. When a student needs support, what are we doing about that? Building co-teaching systems and offering math bilingually. So bilingual offerings in math in addition to co-teaching here at the high school, knowing that the pre-ACT is for 9th and 10th grade. So excited to share that as a result of those leadership moves this year, the pre-ACT data for all students did indeed increase as a result of that. And all of our focus groups also saw growth from 24-25 to 23-24 to 24-25. School year, the exception there is our students with disabilities did see a slight decrease. We have talked through that with our special education team, thinking about, in addition to the leadership moves that are already in place here, what are some additional next steps that we're thinking about to support our students with IEPs in 9th and 10th grade on the pre-ACT for math, and are really leaning into especially designed instruction and how we can increase the frequency of that and students' access to that to make sure that we can continue growing for our students with disabilities as well. So as we launch into this year's results policy, we wanted just to take the time to make sure that we were noting where we had exceptions last year and the spaces in which we've grown this year as a result. With that, we'll jump into some of our key findings. We have organized this by grade band, and so you will see K3, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. So at the K3 level, our kindergarten students early on are already showing growth in their in-classroom assessments. We actually switched the assessment that they took last year with the introduction of Act 20. We moved our elementary K assessment to be Ames Web. So we have 1 year of Ames Web data this year, but we didn't have comparative data. So in the results monitoring report this time, we used in-class assessment data comparing students throughout this year, and we are indeed seeing growth there. We also see a 10% increase in proficiency for STAR in grades 1 through 3, 11% increase for our multilingual learners. So exciting growth for our focus group students. On STAR Math and Spanish, they don't give you a proficiency score because there's not enough data nationwide to determine what the proficiency rate is. So instead, they talk about students who are low risk, and our goal is essentially to increase the number of students who are low risk. And we did indeed, for the students who take the Spanish STAR Math test, we did see a 5% increase in students who are low risk. So some definite celebrations and growth at the K3 level last year. When it comes to 4-5, we saw overall 13% increase in proficiency year over year as measured by STAR, 5% increase for our students with IEPs, increase of 18% of students that were in that low risk category for Spanish. Here, where a little bit of the conundrum was for us, we're seeing 13% increased proficiency on STAR. Our forward results, the state test, didn't necessarily match that. In those cases, we look for more data. So we look at the STAR, we're given 3 times a year. The forward is 1 assessment. We look to classroom level data as well. And so our indications are really showing, based on STAR and those other data points, that students are moving in the right direction. When we get to middle school, we saw the greatest gains at middle school, which you likely saw highlighted within the overview as well. Almost a 26% increase in proficiency on STAR from 1 year to the next, which is really impressive jumps and gains for students at the middle school level. Other note here, 40% of students made high growth. So we often say we're looking for students to make typical growth or students to make typical and high growth. Typical growth will keep students on the trajectory that they're on. So if they are not yet proficient and they make typical growth, chances are the next year they will continue to not yet be proficient. So we really are looking for high growth. Where are we closing gaps for students? So exciting to see that of our 6-8 students, 40% of them made high growth. So are really accelerating their trajectory. We look at specific focus group students, African American students, we saw an increase in 25% for students testing proficient, an increase of 15% for students with IEPs. In this case, the forward data also mirrors the STAR data, and we're seeing forward data showing 5% increase in proficiency there. So some really exciting work. Karen will speak to the leadership moves that we've seen at middle school, but knowing that the leadership moves, many of them are the same as language arts, but they're really making an impact for our students, and we're seeing that in their performance data. At the high school, we saw a 2% increase in our pre-ACT data. As a reminder, pre-ACT is taken in 9th and 10th grade. We saw a 5% increase for our Hispanic and Latinx students. One of the areas we really leaned into at the high school was cohort data. So looking at how did the students perform in 9th grade and how are they performing in 10th grade? Got that? And then again, from pre-ACT to ACT. And in both instances, our cohorts, when you look at the specific group of students, there is growth, right? They are growing from 9th to 10th. They're also growing from pre-ACT to ACT. The ACT data itself is also showing that expected growth would be about 0.75, and we're at about 0.7. So we're seeing that expected growth. The gap here for us is noting that our ACT data remains below the state average. So again, we're showing internal growth, improvement through cohorts and improvement cohort over cohort, and yet we are below the state average and some of our comparable districts. And so that's an area where when we talk about high growth on STAR for middle school, we're looking to build some, ACT doesn't give you that official term of high growth, but that's really what we're looking to do at the high school and continuing the trajectory and that high growth for our middle school students as they continue into the high school all the way through ACT. Because all of the other indicators we have are showing growth, the cohorts are showing growth. How do we accelerate and increase that growth so that is better represented on the ACT for math comparative to the state and to other districts. So definitely some areas of celebration within our key findings. here and definitely some areas that we want to continue to lean into and have already begun building some of those systems around. So I'm going to turn it over to Karen, our Director of Teaching, Learning, and Innovation, to talk a bit more about what those leadership roles have looked like at each level and what we're planning for as a result.
Yeah, so whenever we're looking at results using our assessment model, we're always asking the question of why are we seeing these results, and what are the leadership moves or the high impact strategies that may be contributing to it. So again, going through grade bands, we want to call out a few of those high impact strategies for you, leadership moves that we will continue to focus on throughout the rest of this year as well. So at the elementary level in K-5, we are in the process of relaunching the Bridges Math curriculum. The Bridges Math curriculum was adopted during COVID. The implementation process was obviously impacted by the pandemic and students' access to learning. We are currently relaunching the Bridges so that it includes the pacing guide as it is written in the curriculum resource, which allows us to ensure that our students actually have access to the spiral of grade level standards over the course of an entire academic year. Previously, students were not actually getting through the entire curriculum resource, so building out that pacing guide with this relaunch is critical. And educators will have an opportunity to lean into that relaunch and the pacing guide and the resources that they may not be utilizing to the full extent at our February 2nd PD at our elementary schools. So we're excited that we're taking that step forward. When we look at the addition of the Ames Web Math Screener, we also see that this supports instructional decision-making at the grade level. So that Ames Web data allows the school site and the teachers and their PLCs to make decisions about what instruction looks like in the classroom. So that relevance of the data to classroom instruction has made a big difference for us as well. When we look at middle school, thinking on those, reflecting on those results that Amy just uplifted, a few key things that happen there. One is the actual instructional minutes, that increase in longer classes, as well as more time for students to experience those targeted skills instruction. So opportunities again for students to actually be doing the math for longer periods of time with support. In addition, that allows for that spiral of standards over the course of the curriculum resource. And then finally, also the implementation of the Algebra Academy at Savannah Oaks specifically, and ensuring that algebra is accessible to all students. And there's clear evidence of that impact for students on their standardized assessment scores. So that is a program and a model that we want to continue to implement and to replicate. And then finally, at the high school, when we think about leadership moves and high impact strategies, the math department and the work that they're doing in PLCs to build common summative assessments for those core courses has been a critical move. And they are reviewing protocols to ensure that instruction is responsive to student needs. So in that cycle of inquiry in the PLC, with the formative assessment data that they're using, they're able to be responsive to students' needs. Also, students in algebra are engaging in goal setting. So based on that use of formative assessment, based on the standards alignment, students in those algebra classes are able to set goals for themselves so that they are continuing to focus on those skills and then seeing the results in other performances. And then finally, Brian has implemented school-wide ACT prep courses and integrating some of those ACT prep type practice problems into course content. So the math team is working on that as well. And those are some of the high impact strategies. The next thing that we wanted to do was to be sure that we uplifted for you all street data. And while this is a small sampling of the street data that we collected, it is representative of some of the themes. So what we wanted to call out specifically was the clear evidence of learning partnerships. So when we talk about those impact strategies, high impact strategies, we talk about teachers and their partnerships with students and looking at the data together. We hear from the students in their street data responses as well, how important those partnerships are for them. Also, students calling out very clearly their own confidence based on their growth and skill development. So that sense of, that ability to recognize that they are improving, that they know how to do the work, and the confidence level that grows for them. And then finally, that contributes to this really clear evidence of student agency, an increase in student agency, students seeing themselves as mathematicians, students feeling excited about being able to perform well in those classes. And then finally, we wanted to be sure that we uplifted next steps for you all related to our mathematics program. So we're going to continue to invest in professional learning for our educators. We do that through role-alike, and we will be continuing to determine how best to create some of those opportunities in role-alike in mathematics specifically, but also PLCs, our teachers being able to look at student data together in PLCs, professional learning days, and again, calling out this upcoming one in February as an opportunity for us to invest in that professional learning. Building that data culture, in particular, helping through the PLC process, educators to be looking at that formative assessment data as well as the summative assessment data, which in turn allows us to make more impactful and timely decisions about ensuring that students who need to have support through an MLSS system are provided with the targeted supports that they need, which gets to that gap closing work that we were talking about before. And then finally, the curricular resource review. In 26-27, we will be reviewing our mathematics curriculum resources. We completed a curriculum resource review for language arts. We completed a curriculum resource review for social studies. We're just finishing up our science curriculum resource review. So next year brings us mathematics, and we are very excited about that as well.
So that will pause for any additional questions you have. Obviously, lots more data in the report, but interested in any questions that you have.
Just a comment. Thank you. Thank you. I think back to 23 and just the outcomes that were presented at that time. And I'll be quite honest, it broke my heart to see a lot of our Black and Latinx students' outcomes with math proficiency at that time. But it also struck a chord with me and rung a bell with cohort-related data and the way we were collecting it. And I said, how can we figure out a plan to service our scholars when we are comparing apples to oranges? So just seeing what you've done to address first how we collect that information, and then to put a plan together to address the need, and then look at what the outcome is. It's brilliant. It's very forward thinking, and it's a blessing. And I can't thank you enough.
I did want to also share the results for our students with disabilities at the middle school level specifically, that I appreciate the staff moves that you have invested in at that time, and look forward to seeing those results continue to improve. That's an important cohort as well that we need to focus on, making sure they are brought up as well. So thanks for that work.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. And to your point, Kirby and Christopher, because we get to report out on this data, but it's the staff showing up, working with our students every single day. It's the partnerships with 100 Black Men, thinking about Algebra Academy. It's the ways in which we're investing in, partnering with our families, helping our families also understand this data and support their students that really make a difference. But it is exciting when we see these celebrations and we can learn from them.
Yes.
When we think about what can we replicate and where can we continue to grow forward with that. And all of the conversations that have happened, even when the ACT data doesn't look the way we would hope the ACT data looks. In talking with Mr. Cox, we looked at some of our advanced placement data. We have more students taking advanced placement courses in pre-calc and calc AB. The 91% is our pass rate for the AP pre-calc exam. We're above both the state and the global averages for our advanced placement math courses. So there's other data points and places that we're having success, and then we want to think through how do we take that and make sure that we can continue to grow that and accelerate it across the board. So yes, thanks for recognizing that, and thanks to the amazing staff, building leaders, and outside partners that have helped make this possible for our students.
Yeah, I would also want to uplift the leadership of our building principals and their partnership with us as central officers as well. So I would put those results too.
I'd like to just share, having come off of language arts, in a lot of the years that I was teaching math in the district, it seemed we had to teeter-totter and seesaw between supporting language arts and between supporting math. It really felt like resource-wise, we would just kind of flip-flop back and forth. That one year there'd be an AYP in one, and then another year. And I want to lift up the fact that we saw really amazing results from both language arts and math. That the resources, the staff members in this district that have to hold both of those content areas, particularly elementary, that's a lot. And I'm so grateful that we can be talking about all of it with sort of equal value. Maybe that's not sounding how I want it to, but I feel like I've felt that a lot over the years, that we had to kind of focus on one or the other. And this is really an and in a way that's evidenced through the results. And again, in the gratitude of the hard work of all of the people that are making this kind of all come to fruition. So thank you for doing the timelines and just kind of holding all the things that need that value simultaneously.
I think in writing the leadership moves, we hope they don't become too redundant, but we recognize the similarities, right? Working in PLCs, diving into student data,
Extended
it really makes a
instructional
difference
time.
regardless of the content area, and we're seeing that here. And we did also go ahead and add, previously in our school improvement plans, there was only a literacy goal. This past year, we did add literacy and math to make sure that schools were also monitoring and tracking that as well, to your point, because we do have evidence that implementing those leadership moves can translate across content areas.
And I know, just admittedly, again, having been through the road, I'm very curious how the curriculum review goes and how we hold up the classroom experiences that we're getting and the data that sees the richness of what students are learning in concert with ACT scores. You know, as long as I've been a math teacher, those haven't always lived together nicely. And so the data is important. I appreciate that we have strides that we're looking to make with ACT, and what ACT measures beyond mathematics, I would argue it's not fully a mathematics measure. So just that piece that I often sit with, you know, having been that teacher, of ensuring that we're not teaching to the test. I know it sounds really generic, but just that the richness of the work that our teachers do every day and the experiences of students in the classroom seeing themselves as mathematicians doesn't get skewed by attempting to raise ACT scores, knowing they aren't always kind of parallel.
I just wanted to highlight, I mean, the gap closing effort and the results are amazing across the board. And I just felt I need to bring up to better understand, just on behalf of any multilingual learners, and just because a lot of times we don't speak to that as much as other areas, that group has 0% meeting the ACT Math benchmark. So if you could just speak to that, just so I can better understand, you know, what's happening there, what's driving that number. And if anybody from the community is listening that has multilingual learners, what they may expect to have those numbers increase going forward.
Yeah, it's that one, Carl. It's definitely something that we don't take lightly, and we don't, you know, sit with a zero there thinking that that's acceptable. And so when we talked about the exceptions that we had last year, specific with the pre-ACT, some of those same leadership moves are things that we're thinking about for moving into the future. So the course guide is out for the high school right now. We have algebra and geometry that we are offering in Spanish next year. We're thinking about co-teaching sections with BRTs in our high school, math sections. We're thinking about how do we continue to pull the data together to better understand exactly what are these student needs and how do we target support to them. Because we have seen some of the data for our multilingual students at the middle school level, at the K-3 level. We have seen when we've done that has really supported their continual growth and proficiency rates. And so that's something that we want to make sure that we can transfer and bring to the high school. As we see, right, last year we were at the 0% for pre-ACT, and now we're inching up, again, not nearly far enough. We need to continue making those strides, and these are the practices that will get us there, and the continual investment in these program offerings, as well as the co-teaching and the data review to make sure that these numbers are different.
That's great, yeah, and I know there's a pre-ACT kind of study focus groups, right, study sessions. Are we finding that multilingual learners are taking advantage of those?
Yes, to some degree. Previously, last year, we were even able to kind of cluster extra support for those students as they matriculated through. This year, we didn't have quite as many as we did last year step into that. And we feel like some of where our miss was in that particular move was that these are all after school. And so again, we expanded this year into offering more through our A+ sessions as well, to try and target another opportunity there as well.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Just another comment, it reiterates what others have said, but just about the impressive improvements in the focus group data. In the past, I've talked a lot about kind of comparing percentage points year to year, talked about statistical significance, because to me, that's the confidence level you can assign that any increase or decrease is actually attributable to any given factor. And when we're seeing tiny little improvements, it might or it might not, it might just be randomness.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing in this report is huge percentage increases in performance among the focus groups in the proficiency data. And to me, that gives a very high degree of confidence that you can attribute that change to leadership moves that have been made this year. And so I mean, I think that's validating, that says what you're doing is working and that we should continue to do that.
Yeah, I was just gonna echo both of those points. I think it remains to be worked on with multilingual learners. I think teaching classes in Spanish, great, love it. I'm usually the one who's talking about how much I don't like middle school, ever. But, I mean, the number of improvement at middle school is really, really quite impressive.
As a former middle school principal, I can tell you how much I appreciate it.
I mean, honestly, I don't know how you do it. It's madhouse in there.
Which is where the love can be found also, can convert from high school.
But no, I think this report is a really good example of like, particular moves leading to tremendous improvement. And then also it highlights areas where we need to continue improving. And the moves that are going in there, I'm confident are gonna make more than a dent. So it's really good.
And I just wanted to say one more thing about the Algebra Academy 300. When we mentor our kids, our scholars, one of the things that I always think about is something Dr. Clarity says, and something that one of our scholars said to me earlier last year. And that is, Dr. C always says, we're not gonna lower our expectations for students to pass a certain threshold or whatever the case may be. And one of our young scholars in the program said, at Verona, we're expected to succeed. And that's when the light bulb really came on, that something changed. Something's changing in the way that we're interacting with our young scholars mathematically and through literacy, and it's working.
Sharing that. That
it's
street
really-
data is sometimes better than
Yeah.
any charter graph that you have, right? The mindset is there.
Any other questions for the team as we begin to shift then toward our board vote on our mathematics results?
I'll move to accept the report as submitted with exceptions.
With exceptions? We are achieving reasonable progress, or are we not yet achieved?
Oh, it was, I'm sorry, I'm confusing with the executive summary there.
Correct.
Yeah, I vote to achieving reasonable progress.
Okay, so there's a motion from John to approve the results policy mathematics 2.2 as achieving reasonable progress. Second, thank you, Corby. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving mathematics results policy R 2.2 as achieving reasonable progress signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great, the report is approved. Thank you. Team, educators, everyone making an impact on the data that we saw today. Really impactful. Moving on through the agenda to our just general board updates. A couple just reminders. Is anyone else going to the consortium gathering tomorrow evening in Belleville? Wednesday? Tomorrow's not Wednesday? We haven't put in enough hours to skip a day? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
On Wednesday evening. All right, keeping that in mind, dinner at 5:30 and then presentation, shared space, great. So that is a reminder, and then next week already is, no, 2 weeks then is WASB. No, next week is WASB.
Next week.
You're my calendar right now. What day is it? What time is it? Yeah. Lori, thank you for all of your time and energy in working out logistics for WASB, all of the hotel stays and all of the registrations. Thank you for supporting this team in all of that work. Other updates or things to share, Christopher?
I'll make a caveat that I grew up loving the Packers. I still love the Packers, and I'm really sad to see the game, but I will say go Seahawks, and now you can collectively boo. But I will be, I've been invited to be a panelist for a upcoming panel on Beyond Ballot Building Power through Ongoing Civic Engagement, hosted by Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity on January 31st at 6 p.m. at the Literacy Network. Other panels will be Alderperson Donald Densler from Fitchburg and Joe Maldonado, and also State Representative Francesca Hung. So I'm honored to be part of that group, talking about civic engagement. The other thing I did want to say, and I wore this shirt specifically, there's been a lot of really heavy news that we've been all collectively dealing with, but just one additional piece that I wanted to highlight to just call out. Today was announced that we no longer will be providing gender affirming care for youth in the state of Wisconsin. That affects my family, that affects many of the folks in our community. I just wanted to call out to families that are affected by that, or that are transgender or non-binary, that you're an important part of our community, and we value you tremendously. And I am sorry about this outcome today, and you are always, my shirt says, trans people belong, you belong in our school district, and we value you, and I just wanted to make that statement.
Any other updates or announcements? All right, then moving on to the board consent agenda. Board, you'll see our meeting minutes from December 15th along with the OE6 monitoring board notes. Thank you, Meredith, for being our note taker that day. That feels like a really long time ago. Any questions? Hearing none, the board consent agenda is approved as presented. Future dates again are listed. So the consortium gathering listed for Wednesday, convention next week, and then regular board meetings coming, and the spring election. And Juan Carlos and John, we're excited that you will be continuing to run and serve on our board. Thank you. With all of that, we will adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub G to confer with legal counsel concerning strategy to be adopted by the board with respect to litigation, specifically the district's Title IX obligations. And we will remain in closed session under Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub C to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically considering the employment contract of the superintendent. We will adjourn to closed session with roll call vote. Carlos?
Here. I mean, sorry.
Yes? Or yay?
Yeah, sorry.
Christopher? Meredith? John?
Yes.
Corby? Joe?
Aye.
I am I as well. We are adjourned to closed session. We'll take a quick recess and reconvene.